Okay, I'm Zaven Sargsyan, and I'm going to explain bundle branch blocks. So the mini components of the talk are going to be to very quickly review how we get a normal depolarization, talk about where on the EKG to look for bundle branch blocks, and then finally to explain how the abnormalities electrically arise based on understanding of how the depolarization happens. Okay, so normally we have the sinus node here, the AV node here, and the His-Purkinje system. And one important concept is to realize that the His bundles actually line the endocardium. And they're very, very fast at transmitting electricity. So under normal conditions, when the AV node finally gets done, the electricity shoots through both His bundles, and then the actual meat of the ventricle ends up depolarizing from endocardium to epicardium all at the same time, both the RV and the LV. And because it all happens at the same time and is happening thickness-wise, that is why you get a narrow QRS and the electrical axis on average that you do. So I've already drawn these 1 and V1s prepared, but just to make sure to emphasize the point, on a 12-lead EKG, for most components of EKG interpretation, you don't need to be looking at every single lead. And the two leads that will give you the answer for a wide QRS most of the time for the bundle branch blocks are V1 and 1. So let's see what happens in a right bundle branch block. This guy is broken. So when the AV node transmits, the left bundle depolarizes like it should, and the LV depolarizes thickness-wise like it should. And in lead 1, which points to the left, you get this positive depolarization like normal. But the right ventricle actually ends up depolarizing later and lengthwise, starting from the septum and towards the right. And that's why what you see in lead 1, a leftward pointing lead, is a late and negative and prominent, wide and deep depolarization. Whereas in lead V1, which is a lead that points out of the chest as drawn here, because the right ventricle is actually the anterior ventricle wrapped around the left ventricle, you get your normal negative posterior direction depolarization of the left ventricle into the chest. And then you get a late positive out of the chest depolarization that is the lengthwise depolarization of the right ventricle. Let's look at a left bundle branch block. In this case, this is what's broken. The right ventricle depolarizes thickness-wise and normally, but the whole thick, big LV ends up having to depolarize lengthwise, which takes longer time. And that's why the QRS is wider. So in lead 1, you end up just getting a big, wide, ugly complex that is positive, going to the left. And in V1, you get a big, wide, ugly complex that is negative, meaning going into the chest. Sometimes you'll have these bunny ears, the RSR, and sometimes you won't. Okay, so just to summarize, when you see a wide QRS, most of the time that is caused by a bundle branch block. The places on the EKG to look are V1 and the lead 1 to assess what type of bundle branch block it is, left or right. And by understanding which way the leads point and which direction you're going to be depolarizing abnormally depending on which bundle is broken, you can kind of start to make sense of why it looks the way that it looks, thus decreasing your memorization burden. Thanks.